Hello and welcome back to our 6-week Skillful Living program. My name is Venerable Tarpa. This is our sixth and final week of our uh, in our 11th class, of our program. So this is our sixth week. Today is our 11th class. Uh, this week we are going to explore the meaning of life and the practice of shining. So we're going to wind up our program with these two fantastic teachings. But before we do, let's take a moment to review what we talked about last week. So last week was fun. We went over the skillful living lifestyle. We talked about the topic of style and its importance in our practice and lives, which included developing a soft style, which we practice throughout the week. We also learned and practiced the 10 tenets of a skillful living lifestyle and practiced the 4 expressions of softness throughout the week. Soft and beautiful mind, soft and beautiful speech, soft and beautiful behavior, and soft and beautiful action. One of my very favorite practices. I hope everybody enjoyed cultivating softness throughout the week. Well, does anybody have any questions about last week's practice? And were you able to get a little softer? Do you think you're a little softer this week? Every time we do it, I realize how much I need it. And I always tell myself, now don't stop practicing. Remember to do this every day throughout the year. I'm not naturally soft. Um, I grew up kind of in some tough brothers in a tough neighborhood. So I've had to work at being soft, and I still have to work at it. And what did you guys think about the 4 expressions of softness? Yeah, lovely. Isn't it pretty? Did you notice any change in your engagement with people? Did you notice maybe people at work or even maybe even your own family noticing a difference in your behavior, or maybe people being more drawn to you? This has been my experience. Yeah? Oh, very good. And how about this idea of the 10 tenets of a skillful living lifestyle? Did that appeal to everybody? You know, we had a guy in one of our classes a couple years ago, and he was kind of a matter of fact kind of guy. I don't think he got the softness part, but he was kind of direct. And he said to me, he says, you know, I've seen a lot of these things. You go on and the 5 this, the 5 that, how to be happy and how to live a good life, the 12 things, the 4 things. And he says, I think all of them are just silly. He said, but this one I can get on board with. This one makes sense to me. I'll never forget that. He was so critical of everything else, even our own practices. But when it came to this, he was on board. Yes, this is a great 10 tenants. So I was always happy with that. Okay, since you're not going to chat with me, let's go ahead and start our class. Today, we're exploring the pinnacle of all existential questions. What is the meaning of life? I think there should be thunder playing in the background. You know, whenever I hear this question, I think of that Monty Python movie, which is one of my favorites, The Meaning of Life. Um, but you know, generally when you see this question, at least for me, it reminds me of all those images you always saw in the newspaper when you were. There was always a cartoon, and it was, of course, the classic. I have on here, the classic of a man climbing to the top of a mountain to ask the yogi what is the meaning of life. And of course, there's a million different funny answers. This one he says, did you check out my page on Facebook? Or they'll say, go ask Google, or one said, ask your mother. That was a favorite of mine. But nevertheless, when you say what's the meaning of life, this is the image that comes to mind. And for a good reason. The reason it's the butt a comic, the butt of a joke, is because it's a deeply important thing to us, and especially in the consciousness of Westerners. Don't forget, in that cartoon, it's a Westerner climbing up a mountaintop to ask an Eastern Lama or spiritual person what the meaning of life is, and so that says a lot, doesn't it? Like, he's not climbing to the top of an American mountain trying to asking a forest ranger what it is. It seems maybe we feel like we don't know the meaning of life anymore in the West. But nevertheless, as we talked about in the text, this is no laughing matter, right? What the meaning of life is undoubtedly the most important question for any of us living examined lives, right? Your idea of the meaning of life, or your understanding of what life is really center to your existence, right? I mean, we could think about it as a casual question when we're in a reflective mood, but the fact is that all the things you do in your life, you do in relation to questions like this, right? These are related to, in Buddhism, we call it right view, but we're talking about a proper perspective, right? Or a proper orientation towards life. But when we talk about the meaning of life, it's really your model of reality. It's related to why you think you exist, why you're on the planet, what you're hoping to get from it, what success as a human being looks like to you. All of these questions are related to this. And so they are your model of reality. And as you work with this and gain knowledge, it establishes a more proper model of reality. And in some ways, this is really the Buddhist path. When I look at the complete Buddhist path, of course, we say the aim of life is to become happy, which for Buddhists goes all the way up to the point of enlightenment, which is considered the greatest of all happinesses. But the work that's done and the way we get there is by changing our view. In Buddhism, all of our practices are focused on changing our perspective, of changing our orientation towards life. So, it starts with, like our program, starts with chapter 1, virtue, learning what's virtuous, what's not, what's wholesome, what's not, what's skillful, what's productive, whatever words you want to use. Learning what that is. That was the first thing the Buddha taught. What's to be cultivated and what's to be abandoned. So that's the first thing we learn. And then we learn why it's good to be virtuous. We learn what we can get out of it. We also learn the opposite of what's detrimental about non-virtue. We learned about karma and the momentum we create, that by being virtuous, we create a momentum towards happiness, satisfaction, fulfillment. And by getting into non virtue, we create a momentum leading towards sometimes momentary uh, happiness, like things like drugs and sex. Of course, they're pleasurable, or we wouldn't have problems with them. But the idea, ultimately, they don't deliver lasting happiness, and they do have a momentum towards unhappiness. So, anyways, all of that's related to this, right? And it comes down to that question: why do you? What's the meaning of life? Why are you here on this planet? And of course, a lot of different views, right? The easy one to think about is religions, and for a great deal of the religions, they're focusing on serving God and hopefully one day being with God. So our own salvation is we want to be good people in this life, but a lot of the religions are more geared to having a great afterlife, going to heaven, right? And being with God. So to some, the whole meaning of life is God put us on the planet. We're here to serve Him and be proper practitioners. To others, like businessmen, businessmen have that great saying that whoever dies with the most toys wins, meaning that there isn't some kind of existential reason to exist. It's simply enjoy life, get all the pleasure you can. Other spiritual people have different ideas. Um, Buddhism, of course, it's to awaken, right? To live a good life, to benefit others, to evolve spiritually. And with some Buddhists, traditional Buddhists, believing that they can leave common mundane existence behind and achieve an everlasting happiness. But the Buddhist model of reality is quite unique, and that's one of the main things I wanted to share with everybody today. Um, Buddhism doesn't share the common religious view of a universe locked in battle between good and evil. And possibly even more than religious, spiritual people often will also have a sense that there's kind of evil and good playing out in the universe. But Buddhists don't. And Buddhists assert a natural universe operating within natural universal laws. Buddhism refutes the notion of a conscious universe, insisting that consciousness can only exist within a mind. Therefore, for Buddhists who are non theistic, it's a funny term, non theistic. A theist is a person who believes in God, an atheist is a person who denies theists, but a non theistic is, is directly related to not having a belief in a creator God. So, for Buddhists who are non theistic, the universe simply lacks the ability to impute meaning. In other words, only a mind can impute meaning upon life. It's ourselves, our families, our friends, and our culture that decides on the meaning of our lives. So Buddhists who don't see a universe having consciousness, well, not having a mind, um, that consciousness simply doesn't have that ability. So when we think about our minds and consciousness, we're talking about principles like meaning, purpose, value, right? The value of things, right and wrong, good and bad, judgment, and also functions. These don't exist in the natural universe, right? Those exist only in a mind. They can only be known, asserted, or experienced by a mind, right? So, according to Buddhism, at the universal level, there simply is no ultimate meaning to life. The universe doesn't tell us the meaning of life. We exist because we exist as unique manifestations of the universe. Personally, I find this very refreshing. One of the things I like about Buddhism is its natural view of universe and also of people. Now, Buddhism can be quite religious too. Often people don't like to talk about it. Buddhism does have all that religiosity to it. There's no belief in a creator god, but there are devas, which are lesser gods that they believe in, and also mystical creatures and things like that. But especially as a secular Buddhist, we really can have a natural view of the universe, which coincides with our modern understanding of the universe itself. So, again, in Buddhism, understanding the meaning of life is foundational in the development of right view. We've been talking about right view from the very beginning of this program, and this program is solely dedicated to it. And remember, we talk about right view, meaning a skillful or productive view. For Buddhists, when we say right view, they're saying the Buddhist view, the the Buddha's view, the Buddha's model of the nature of reality, right? So right is a very proper word for traditional Buddhists who believe the Buddha is one of the only beings who has ever really understood and recognized the true view, the true nature of things as they exist. So it's a proper term in Buddhism, right view. We often have people that say they don't care for that term, but I'm happy with skillful view or productive view. To me, it doesn't have to be hinged on some type of ultimate truth, which I don't believe I believe in any ultimate truths. Um, Truth is always in a state of transition, not just as things in the universe unfold, but more importantly, our ability to understand is always in a state of evolution. You know, there's many complicated things that you could never have learned when you were a child that you understand now because your wisdom, your consciousness has grown. You can understand things now at a much deeper level. So when it comes to truth, the human ability to understand truth is evolving. So I don't necessarily believe in ultimate truth, but the idea of having a truth or a model of reality that is skillful, productive, effective, something that I can follow in order to awaken through my practice, through which you'd end up at the end with a better understanding and be able to apprehend more of life, of our view. That works for me, right? Anyways, so of course, the meaning of life is directly connected to right view. And again, getting back to the Buddhist model of the nature of reality, which includes the Buddhist model of the universe. Um, but the meaning of life as a question is perplexing to human beings. That's why we have those really fun cartoons of that businessman climbing the mountaintop to ask an Indian guru, tell me what life is all about. I went to university, I got a degree, I'm an important man. I have no idea what life is about, right? Um, but I believe the complexity and confusion that we all seem to have with that question pertains to or stems from our own exaggerated sense of importance. By believing that we're special, which we all do, don't we? First of all, we believe humanity is special, and we all think we're special within that. But when we imagine that, when we imagine that we're special like that, we then imagine that there must be a special meaning for our existence, right? They go hand in hand. However, if you can subdue that egotism, which is clearly what it is, right? When you take a step back and you realize that nobody really cares about me in the context of the universe, me on this little speck of land that I'm on in front of a dozen people on this little blue dot of a planet in the vastness of the universe. I am not important at all. But if we can subdue our own egotism and then shift the focus of our analysis away from ourselves to something else, say a bird or a flower, as I share in the text, suddenly the question gains great clarity, doesn't it? The problem with understanding the question is ourselves. If we take ourselves out of that, all of a sudden there's great clarity. For when I ask any of you, why does a bird exist? Or what's the meaning of a bird's life? That becomes a pretty easy question to ask. Clearly, a bird has no special reason to exist. The bird doesn't really have any meaning of life, right? I mean, fly, eat, make baby birds, try to live as long as you can. There's not much of a meaning there. But clearly the bird there's no special reason for it to exist. It's merely an amazing expression of the universe, truly special. Yes, this creature that can fly through the air and sing those beautiful songs. A bird doesn't need to validate its worth by accomplishing anything, right? Little birds don't have to go to university. Little birds don't have to impress their parents, right? Little birds don't have to learn a trade so they can stand out from the other little birds, right? Well, guess what? Neither do we. We think that we've created this. None of it's real. We've created this big thing about all of us, we all have to validate our worth, right? From when you're children, that's a big part of all of us. Having a special skill, getting good grades, making your parents proud of us. It's not enough for us to just be born and be amazing people. We have to validate our worth. It's required in our cultures, right? And but we, like the bird, are already whole and complete. Our existence in each moment is our unique contribution to the universe. There's nothing to prove or any any further value to earn. Our existence alone is the miracle of our existence. Now, I can see you all nodding your heads. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But we don't really know it, do we? I mean, that statement doesn't go well with our cultural norms, right? Our cultural norms are the exact opposite of that. But what we're telling you now is that, according to Buddhism, you're free to choose for yourself what the meaning of your life is and how you want to express or experience it, right? You're free to simply abide in appreciation of the miracle of your existence, understanding the unsurpassable value that we embody simply by existing. We bring awareness to the universe, right? Think about sentient beings. Without sentient beings, there's no awareness anywhere in the universe. The universe is wonderful, functional, but no awareness of any kind. Sentient beings bring awareness into the world. We can experience existence. We can experience the universe. It's quite extraordinary. This ties into our practice of appreciation, doesn't it? Boy, I'm appreciating it now. I had this pretty quote by a gentleman named Venerable Tarpa. Once we accept the fact that it's not necessary to validate our worth through striving and achieving, we gain the first glimpse of our true nature. What's extraordinary is that we exist in the first place. Isn't that special enough? Boy, I could read that over about 3 or 4 times. You get that? We don't get that, do we? We don't get just how incredible our existence is. We yell at our son for laying on the couch. Get up and do something, you lazy. Get a job. We don't look at our child and just think, what a miracle. This being can breathe air and eat and experience the world around them. We say, oh, that's nice, but they need to do more. They need to do more than that. They also need to learn how to fly an airplane or be good at football. I'm sorry. Yeah, existence is exciting and wondrous, but it's not enough. We want you to be an accountant as well. Oh, Lord. You are the bird, you are the flower. Your existence itself is the accomplishment that needs no further embellishment. To not recognize this fact is a seriously under is to seriously underappreciate the wonder and miracle of life itself. And until you do, until you realize your value at that existential level, you'll never really be able to experience your true nature, because that's where it all begins. I mean, that is the initial wondrous thing about all of us. And when you think about it like that, you think, well, every human being, every sentient creature is a miracle and wondrous. And then why do we make all the other sentient beings jump through all these hoops for us? What they got to be? Any questions? Miss Wangmo?
Thank you. I understand the idea of at a universal level, there's no meaning to life, but how do you contrast that with the idea that the purpose of all sentient beings is to awaken?
Sure. Well, we're going to get into that in a second. And
Okay.
in a second, we're going to talk about the difference between meaning and purpose. Can I answer the question then? Yeah, we see a little difference between those two questions. Yeah. David? Wrong button, David. You need some help. Hey,
Sorry, my buttons disappeared for some reason. Mhm.
good to
Yeah,
see you.
you said there's no such, as I understood it, there's no such thing as ultimate truth. So how does that leave the notion of our true nature?
So, first of all, that's kind of just my feeling. Traditional Buddhists believe that what the Buddha taught is an ultimate truth. Uh, but in my explanation of why I don't, um, that's more of a personal
Okay.
idea, and I'm not. I'm not so. I haven't found a universal truth yet that I'm on board with. Um,
Uh,
Remember when we say true nature, when we're talking about the true nature of ourselves, you tend to take it literally, and it's not meant to be taken literally. Other than in traditional Buddhism, they do kind of see it more literal. Sorry for that confusing answer. Uh, but the uh, properly in Buddhism, I use it as a term, but to be literal, it's not that we have a true nature that is truly us. It's considered a potential. So in the early EBTs, the Buddha describes it. We have, uh, and they also soften it by saying it's kind of, well, we have a potential for goodness. We have a potential, but the Buddha also, in so many ways, talked about it as almost being inherent within us. He talks about our inherent beautiful hearts of human beings and things like that. So it tends to be a technical term. It's a throwover from when I was a Mahayana Buddhist. That it's a belief in Mahayana Buddhism, but not a term that's used in the early Buddhist teachings.
Thanks.
Oh, Miss Jan, please share.
Well, I just wanted to say this isn't really a question, but when I really got to thinking about, how there's no same meaning for everybody. The universe doesn't have a mind. It's not able to impute meaning in and of itself. It just seemed very freeing for me, very like, oh, okay, I can relax. I don't have to be some certain way and I'm falling down on the job if I'm not being that way. It was just a very great feeling. I really liked that idea.
That's the hope. I think when people first hear there's no ultimate meaning of life, they feel like a little bit of the safety net's been taken out from under them. And then once you get comfortable, all of a sudden you realize it's giving you permission for complete freedom to do what you want. Now, we say that, but there is some ultimate meaning to life, and it starts with our parents. They can kind of implement the ultimate meaning of life for you, right? You could have parents that say, you're going to grow up to be the doctor and that's all there is to it. And maybe your real meaning of life is obeying your parents. I was joking, but I wanted to emphasize as much as we're free to decide, our cultures, our family, our friends influence it as well, or at least they feed us ideas of what our our meaning of life should be, especially religion, right? Um, but again, more and more, you're absolutely free to decide for yourself, all right? You're in charge. Thank you, Jen. What do you guys think about the idea of a universe that an unconscious universe? Even for spiritual people, they'll tend to have a loose belief in something greater than themselves. And in my experience, most of them pin some kind of consciousness to it, right? The idea of universal consciousness is popular. It even trickled into Buddhism in the fourth century with the Yogacara tradition. It didn't last long. What do you guys think of that idea? Is that uncomfortable for anybody to think that it's just us? Miss Wama, did you raise your hand?
Yeah, that's a hard one to let go. Even scientifically, like you'll see articles about, the interrelatedness and universal consciousness. And if we were brought up in a Christian tradition, um, that plays a factor as well. The letting go of a creator God thing was easy, but the universal consciousness part is hard to let go of.
And also remember nowadays, when science is talking about universal consciousness, they're not talking about actual cognition, right? I don't they're not talking about a universe that can think and decide. They're just talking about a living universe, consciousness at the basic level, right? A raw basic awareness, which is often how our consciousness works. If you remember in our class of the Buddhist secular Buddhist essentials, we talked about Buddhism sees consciousness as very base level and raw within us, and it's actually our awareness that's combined with mental factors that creates the consciousness we usually talk about, our thinking, our doing. Those kind of factors aren't usually considered at the conscious level. That's considered the next step up in cognition of awareness. Funny story, when I became a Buddhist, before I was a Buddhist, I was an atheist, but I still kind of had a loose belief in kind of heaven and hell in a conscious universe and those kind of things. And Buddhism got me to stop believing in those things. I stopped believing uh, in those. And what was funny was I finally got over it and I was happy and I liked where I was. It seemed logical to me. And then all of a sudden, I got deeper into Buddhism and I discovered, hey, that stuff's here as well. I didn't know. Nobody told me in Buddhism there was heavens and hells and deities and planes of existence. They don't sell Buddhism like that at the beginning, right? At the beginning, they say, oh, Buddhism isn't a religion, it's a philosophy and way of life. And all of a sudden, I found all that stuff coming back. And I think that's why I'm a secular Buddhist today, because I got rid of it all and I couldn't bring it back again. So I think even back then, 10 years in a monastery chanting the deities, I could never, I could never get on board again with it. Oh, how about Chime? What do you got for us, Chime? Let's keep it all brief,
I
everybody.
yeah. I thought I read Thich Nhat Hanh said something about our base consciousness or objective consciousness is here before we are here. And then we go through life and we live with our consciousness that's built upon that foundation of awareness.
No, it would
And
be the
then
opposite.
okay,
Yeah, there's always well, it enters consciousness enters the womb in traditional Buddhism at the point of conception, but they consider the body there first, the cells there
okay.
first. And then consciousness needs something to enter.
Okay, it gave me a little bit of comfort when I think about my eventual demise that somehow my consciousness would be reunited with whatever the universe's consciousness is. So I'm a little uncomfortable with with what you're saying, although it makes perfect sense.
Joe, I got a great video for you to watch. It's on our website, Secular Buddhist Essentials. There's a video on there on rebirth. And
Okay.
I'm not saying that that's true. I'm saying that's the Buddhist explanation of it all.
Oh, okay.
You can
Yeah,
decide for yourself.
I'll look into it. Thanks.
Thanks, Joe. Oh, David?
Yeah, about universal consciousness. I mean, my personal view is that there could be some integrity encompassing all of this in some form that's beyond our ability to conceive of it, because our consciousness has only just got us through this tiny wee planet survival kind of thing. So there could be something much bigger and much more all-encompassing. But I don't know about it. I can't prove it. Nobody else can, as far as I can see. So there's no point. There's no point
Spoken
worrying,
like a
worrying
true,
about it.
spoken like a true agnostic. And if you know, agnosticism is really a huge part of the secular Buddhist tradition view. Uh, Acknowledging, yes, we don't know these things. What I was sharing with you was the Buddhist view on it. So, but I'm with you. I try to stay open-minded about these things. Maybe it's true, and the Buddha just didn't think we needed to know about that on our path to awakening. Miss Jen?
Well, I just wanted to say that, I always wanted to believe that there was some sort of universal consciousness or universal, mind out there that was guiding us, but I just never really could. So again, it's kind of a relief to have it be just set out in the open. Okay, it's not there.
Sure, I'm with you. Yeah, you're preaching to the choir. Hey, with that said, I'd like to keep going. I got some more to share with everybody. So I wanted to address Wangmo's question. So another point that needs clarification is the difference between meaning and purpose. And this is more of a personal view. For myself, the question of meaning pertains to why do we exist, right? Um, it's kind of funny when people were asking the Dalai Lama what the meaning of life is, and I found this true with other lamas as well. They would often say, "Oh, well, it's to be kind towards others and live a good life." And um, but then someone mentioned that, oh, the question doesn't mean, what should we do with our lives? The question of the meaning of life is, why do I exist instead of non-exist? And every Lama I ever said that to, their jaw just dropped. Like, it's not a part of the Tibetan consciousness to enter. They just accept the fact, hey, we're here. That's it. There's, you don't need to philosophize about anything prior. But for Westerners, we take it a step further. Why do we exist instead of not exist? Where for me, the question of purpose, what's the purpose of life, is more about what should we do with our lives. Um, Also, the idea that each one of us is born with only a single purpose, which a lot of us think, sounds dreary to me. That sounds like a miserable life. I myself have had many different purposes in my life through various ages, from when I was a rock musician, now that I'm a monk. My purpose of life has changed quite a bit. Um, but friends often ask me to help them find their true purpose, right? And you've heard so many people spend their whole lives trying to find their true purpose. And people act like there's some kind of deficiency, or there's a hole in the middle of their chest that needs to be filled. Um, and they think that there's some kind of special purpose they were born to do, or maybe it's a talent. Um, and and many people become quite preoccupied with it and miserable. They go through their whole lives. People tell me, I'm 50 years old. I've never found my purpose of life. Um, but I don't believe there's such a thing. And hey, maybe the purpose of your life is to be really skilled at a whole bunch of little things. Who knows what something like that could be. But the fact is, according to myself and Buddhism, that there is no hole in any of us. We are and have always been whole and complete, free to decide for ourselves what the purpose of in our lives will be. So if simply existing is enough, what then should we do with our lives? When we were talking about the bird before. The bird's got nothing to prove. It's got no meaning. It just lives its life. Do you think that bird's missing anything? Do you think Do you think all the little birds you see have giant holes underneath their feathers at their chest, and they're all flying around saying, God, I wish I knew why I'm existing. There should be something to do. And then, of course, I thought, well, birds don't do anything. There isn't anything. You can't join a charity or volunteer for something. You're a bird. But, think about all the creatures out there. Is there something lacking in any of them? Of course not. They're whole and complete in what they are. And in a sense, there's an argument to say that all creatures are perfect in what they are. For the fact that even though creatures evolve, the bird has been evolving for thousands, millions of years, right? But at each stage of its development, it's perfect in what it is. Yes, there's always room for improvement. The bird can evolve further, get better at digging up worms, get better at flying, at outrunning predators. But it doesn't negate the fact that a bird at every moment of its existence through all these thousands of years has always been whole and complete, in a sense, perfect in what it is. I would suggest we have the same thing. But for us, it's kind of the opposite. We have all this conceptualization that gets in the way. And anyways, I think that's Wangmo. Do you want to share something?
Just real quick, do you think there's a difference though between a a bird and us as human beings? They don't have the mind that we have, um, to study Dharma, to and try to improve our lives, to rationalize and conceptualize. They don't have the same mind as us, so their purpose is different than ours, isn't it?
Um, all animals are different in their evolution, right? So you could say that about us. I'm sorry, I lost my script. I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing here. Let me let me fix this while I talk. So a lot of animals are a lot closer to us, right? You have dolphins, you have higher primates, all of those things. So it's a spectrum. You know, you got worms way down at the other end. So as far as do we stand out, we're at the top of the intelligence chain, but there are animals that are, you know, they can think, they can feel, they can do a lot of the things that we do. So I don't see us being absolutely separate. I find us being at the top of the intellectual chain, but I think we share something. We all do. And I think a lot of these things can be true. You know, we just don't really know what gorillas think or what dolphins think. Maybe they are philosophical. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that was a good answer. In one way, I'd say yes. We have this amazing, this frontal lobe that we have has this amazing ability of creativity and higher mind functions. But yeah, good question though. I'm still trying to figure out where I am. You guys might have to come back tomorrow for the rest of this talk. Um, so when we, so if simply existing is enough, like we said, then what then should we do with our lives? What's the purpose of our lives then? According to Buddha, although not asserting a distinct meaning of life, and actually, the Buddha also doesn't have an evolution or a origin story for human beings. There is an origin story in the sutras, but it's very suspicious if it's accurate. But the Buddha really doesn't have an origin story. But he does say, he asserts that awakening to be the true consummation of life. So let's look at the word consummation. So it's not quite the same thing as purpose. I don't think it answers the question of meaning. This is saying um, uh, what's the result that we're hoping to get out of our lives. To Buddha, it's to awaken, right? So that's closely related to purpose, where awakening is more related to why do we exist in the first place. So, so for the Buddha, seeing awakening as the flowering of human existence, right? That's what we mean by the consummation. That's the that's what human beings are working towards, and it's kind of pretty. Uh, it's through our awakening that our virtuous activities spontaneously and effortlessly shine forth. And when we accept this, we get to the point where we're, like Jen was mentioning, this sense of freedom, that we're free to dance and sing, to express, create, explore, achieve, to love and be loved, to discover and delight in our innate goodness and unlimited potential. Or, as I like to say, the purpose of life is to shine. Now, one difference between this and the idea of believing that there's some kind of single purpose that we're all born from is that the idea is we're just expressing ourselves as humans, but nobody's Nobody's putting that on us. Nobody's demanding that of us. We're saying when we realize that we're whole and complete, exactly the way we are, that I'm perfect in this point of evolution for me. And I don't have to jump through all these hoops. I don't have to validate myself to others. Then I'm free to do what I want, to be creative, to sing, to dance, to live life. I mean, it doesn't mean you can't do things, but you do it out of passion, out of love. So again, we're not saying there isn't a meaning to life. What we're saying is the meaning and purpose of our lives is up to each one of us to decide for ourselves. You're free to choose what your life means and when that purpose has. Human beings themselves are meaning creating machines. Forgot who said that. But it's true, like everything in our lives we do is about meaning, right? Our understanding of things. Why is this that? How do I do this? Aren't those all questions of meaning, right? And so everything we do as beings, we're kind of wired for meaning. So maybe the meaning of life is for us to bring meaning to life. Any questions, comments? That's not my meaning of life. Mine is to eat too much and make my sugar level go up. What do you guys think of that? You see the distinction between meaning and purpose? Is that just me or is that logical to you? Why do I exist? I have no idea. What's the meaning of my life? Well, at this moment, it's teaching a Zoom class. We can wake up every morning and pick a different meaning, can't we? We could chop up our day in the sections. In the morning, my meaning is going to be this. And then purpose. Yeah, what are we going to do with our lives? I'm going to benefit people. That's where the Dalai Lama answered so nicely. Yes, Sangpo, the meaning of life is 42. Sangpo is a fan of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe. And that's a funny line out of that. I remember that. Yeah. The meaning of life is to bring meaning to life. Love that. Ah, thank you, Rainer. Yeah, and it should be fun. It shouldn't be something we dread. Tarpa, I don't know my meaning of life. Let me give you one. Here, how about try this one? Oh, anyways. Okay, if you guys aren't going to chat with me, let's finish up. We got a busy rest of the retreat to get to. So today we explored the pinnacle of all questions. What is the meaning of life? And that the importance of understanding this question is crucial in life, and it establishes our model of reality. We share that the Buddhist model of reality and unique view of the universe. We talked about that consciousness only exists in the mind. Therefore, there is no ultimate or universal meaning to life. We ourselves choose the meaning and purpose of our lives, and that our existence in each moment is the true miracle of life. We also learned that the Buddha asserted that awakening is the true consummation of our lives. In tomorrow's class, in lesson 12, we're going to be exploring the practice of shining. And boy, do I got some great stuff to share with you. Until then, you can do a little study, contemplation, and meditation on what we talked about today. And always remember, I'm just a click away for help and support. So, a quick reminder, this is Sunday. We're having a retreat today. This is the last Sunday of the month. We got some events coming up. We have, in a half an hour, we have our vow purification ceremony. It's a short ceremony. Everybody's welcome to come. It's quite beautiful. You might enjoy it. A half an hour after that will be our last meditation for the day. It's a loving kindness meditation. We'll also have some Sangha chat. a little discussion. So with that said, let's end today's class with our altruistic affirmation. May all be healthy, may all be prosperous, may all be well, may all be present, free of past regret and future worry. May all abide in constant appreciation, which is the source of great joy and contentment. May all realize their true nature and the true nature of reality, which is awakening. Excuse me, I got the hiccups at the last minute. Thanks everybody for coming. Remember that SBT community was created for one purpose, to support you, the practitioners. We'll see you back here in 30 minutes. Bye, friends.
Thank you, Tarpa. Bye,
There's
everyone.
no
Thank
hole in
you.
any of you.
you.